I turn this on. Let me know if it's working or when it's working. Can y'all hear me good? And can you see this? Now remember, I am not an artist by any means. So if somebody wants to take over while I'm doing this and says, oh, I could draw a much better circle than you can, come on up. Let's all flip to Genesis chapter 1. I'm going to talk about the generation of creation, the generations of creation. And I'm just hoping to make this exciting, but to also help you learn things that you might not know. If I said right now, what day did God make the horses? Can you answer that? And if you can't answer that, then this will be very beneficial for you. If I said, what day did God make the fish? What day did God make the stars? If you don't know, I'm going to help you learn just by a simple mnemonic, a simple memory trick to help you. And so we're going to go through and we're going to look at the days of creation, something we all know is going to help us, but then we're going to learn how to remember what God did on what day. And so that's going to be the first part of the lesson this morning. And so does anybody know all the days of creation? Does anybody memorize Genesis chapter 1? This is applicable to everybody. This is a perfect lesson this morning. I'm going to turn this slightly so everybody can be able to see it. And I'm going to start with a circle. And if you think you can do a better circle, come on up. That's pretty good. Verse 1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Let's finish that out. It says, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. On day one, we have light and dark. Pretty simple. God created light and dark. He separated them night and day. Let's look at day 2. And God said, verse 6, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were also above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So later we see that the birds fly in the midst of the firmament. So we're going to call this firmament, and I'm going to have to shorten this circle a little bit because I didn't give myself enough room. So we got more of a tomato this time. We're going to call the firmament sky and water. So now we have sky and water for our second day. So I'm going to go ahead and finish out this circle over here. And let's look at the last little bit. What verse did we leave off on? 9. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and the herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. I have all my markers back here, so I'm going to try to draw this. My geography is really bad, so we're just going to draw some land masses because it's not going to look like today, right? So we're going to put a landmass here, do a little gulf, put Greenland up here, South America goes down in there. That's pretty good. So we're also going to add the waters around it, because remember you have the seas, the land, and then what was on the land? Green. That's good enough. Green's on the land. So we're going to add in all the grass and stuff like that. So he made all the different, Greenland should be more ice, but for now, this is pre-flood. This should work. So we have day 1, light and dark. Day 2, heaven and water, or sky and water. And then day 3, we have the land and the seas. So days 1, 2, and 3 has now been set up. So let's go ahead and frame out day 4, 5, and 6. So we have day 4, day 5, and day 6. We are getting more oval with every earth there. 4, 5, and 6. Now here's the cool trick that we're going to do. So I'm going to explain it, and then we're going to go through and we're going to see it. So let's split it, and I'm just going to draw some land masses really quick for us. Do the same thing here, a little bit of a gulf, a little bit of an island, a little bit of South America. There we go. Finish this off just so we have a good visual so you can remember how to remember each day. Throw in our water over here. And then we'll leave the land open for now. I'll just put this back. So let's go to verse 14 and let's start on day 4. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth and to rule over the day and over the night and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. So what do we have now? In the light over here, we have the, anybody? Sunshine. And he always wears shades, right? Oh, that's weird. And then over here, we're going to have the moon. I don't know the direction you take for stars, but everybody's different, right? Moon, stars, light. So you have the night. And you have the day. And then he fills the night and the day with the substance, which are the lights. So let's go on to the next day. Verse 20 says, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. I'm going to skip just a little bit here to 23 to end off this. Actually, it's only one verse. So, and God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters and seas, let the fowl multiply the earth. Then verse 23, and the evening and the morning were the 5th day. So what did God create on the 5th day? The fishies and the birds, or M&Ms. God created the fish, that's a whale, and the sky. So you filled the water and the sky. He filled the sky with the birds and the water with all of the fish and the whales. And so let's look at and we all know the last day, but let's look at what's remaining on the last day. I think we're about 24, right? And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping things, the beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so, and God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God makes man. We know he ends the 6th day. He rests on the 7th. So on the 6th day, I ran out of all the room, so we'll draw a little animal here. I practiced this. Ready? This is Peppa Pig. That's the best I can do. You have pigs, and then you have people that were also made, Adam and Eve. That's the best I can do. So look at how you can remember this. Very easy. You start with light and dark, sky and water, then your land. Then you fill them. Stars, sun and moon, birds and fish, people and animals. Really easy now to remember the days of creation. So if you're thinking, wow, I've known this for like 40 years or 30 years and I've never been able to remember it, ta-da, Sunday school can help you remember it. So that's the first part I wanted to look at. And that was just going over the days of creation. These are things that we all kind of know and we should know, but these are good to remember because they just give us an outline of how God operates. And that's the same way if you've ever taken a drawing tutorial, what it tells you to do. It says frame it and then add your details, right? That's what God did with the earth. He framed it and then he added all the details in between. So if you want to be a good artist like the Lord, not like me, then start with your frame and then add all the details. The next thing I want to look at is the next part of the generations. So look at chapter 2, verse 4. It says, these are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created in the day that Lord God made the earth and the heavens. After this point, so you have the generations. After this point, you get chapter 5 a little bit later. Does anyone know what's in chapter 5? Off the top of your head, it is so-and-so begat so-and-so, lived this many years and died. Over and over and over. But it's part of the creation. So it's part of giving you this, who Adam was. So I'm going to flip this around. Does everybody have a good mental picture of that now? We're switching gears. We're going to switch to the other side of the board. The other side of the board is going to talk about the people. So now we have the creation down. We have the heaven. We have the earth. We know how he did it. We're going to look at some of the things about the people. And we see some pretty cool connections. So Anyone can just say it out. Who was the first man created? Go ahead, bud. Adam. So this is at least one we know, right? Adam. And I'm going to draw in all caps. Adam. I think that's right. Try to spell when people are looking at you. It's hard. So you have Adam. Does anybody know who Jared is? Nobody? You know who Jared is in the Bible? Okay, there's something significant about him. I'll come back to him later. Does anybody know who the oldest person that lived in the Bible is? No, I doubt you know his name, but I like your enthusiasm. Methuselah, right? Methuselah is the oldest person that lived in the Bible. And I have a cheat sheet to help me know exactly where to put this, because there's going to be a couple names in between. So we're going to put Methuselah right down here. And these are hundreds of years. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 506. Methuselah was born about 687 years after the creation of the earth. So we're going to come right down here. We're going to write out, and I'm not going to use all caps, Methuselah. And I don't know if that's right, but that's pretty close. So that's going to start him right about there is where he was born. So you have Adam and Methuselah. Now, Adam lived to be how old? Oh, before I answer that, how old did Methuselah live to be? Yeah, 969 years old. Goodness gracious. So that's going to put him way out to about 1650. So that's 10, 15, 1650 is right over here. This is how long Methuselah lived, and we're going to say 969 years. How old did Adam live? Does anybody know that one? So in Genesis chapter 5, if you want to flip there, you can get some of these answers at least in your head while I'm speaking. But Genesis chapter 5, an easy way to remember it is as you go down, verse 3 talks about how old Adam was when he begat the next person. Then it's just multiples of 3. So it's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. Then when you get to Methuselah, and these are all the verses that are going to show you how old they were when they begot the next person. And then when you get to Methuselah, you have a little skip verse because Enoch walked with the Lord. And so then you have 25 is where Methuselah starts. Adam was 930 years old. So that takes us all the way to 930, which is right about here. So Adam, 930 years old. This span right here to this, Methuselah knew Adam for 243 years. So they knew each other for 243 years. If you live to, let's say your parents lived to the age of 80 and they had you when they were 20, you would know your parents for 60 years. That's roughly how long you know your parents. And you would say you know your parents pretty well. You know, that's an entire lifetime that you know your parents. Keep that in mind. When you know somebody for 60 years, that's about the span that you're going to know somebody. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, but that's the longest that you're going to know someone because your parents are generally who you know the longest. And so 60 years, you'd say that's about 4 or 5 lifetimes that he knew Adam. They had a very good relationship. Now we're going to fill out some of the names that are just in between. And if you want to follow along as I'm just writing them, just for a visualization so you can see the bridge, you don't have to. But you have Adam to Seth. And remember, in chapter 5, just go 3, 6, 9, and you'll see all those names. So you get Seth, and I'm not going to write all of theirs out, just so you can see the bridge. Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel. That's a fun one. Hey, then who do you have? Jared. Now, I mentioned something about Jared. Jared lived to be 962 years, the second oldest person in the Bible, but nobody knows who he is. 962 years old, and he's riding his bike without a helmet, probably, and that's why he didn't live to be the oldest. So I can't validate that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So then you have Enoch and Methuselah. So you have Enoch right here, Enoch, who begat Methuselah. So you have this line that goes down. And then after Methuselah, you get Lamech and then Noah. Lamech and then Noah here. We'll just write Noah right there. Now I want to mention something about Lamech. So when Lamech was born, not only him, so Noah's dad plus everybody that's mentioned is alive, even Enoch, and walking on earth when Adam died. You know that everyone mentioned in that genealogy is alive when Adam dies. Shortly after that, Enoch is translated. But you have at his funeral, every single person all the way down to Noah, before Noah was born, is alive. That's pretty interesting. They knew Adam. They all knew Adam. So the line of Noah, every single one, and Noah's the 10th. So you'd have 9 generations before him that all knew Adam. I guess 8 generations because Adam knew Adam, of course. But so you have everyone before. I'm just trying to help you understand there's a strong connection. And it's not just like they knew of Adam, right? 243 years he knew. I think Lamech, I might have written it down. He knew Noah for 56 years. I'm sorry, Adam. Of course he knew Noah. Adam, he knew Adam for 56 years. That's about how long you know your parents. That's how long Noah's dad knew Adam. And so then you have Noah, and there's something that's pretty cool with Noah. The flood happens with Noah, right? And it's very distinct when the flood happens in his life. If you don't know, Noah was 600 years old. Go ahead and flip to chapter 7. This is an interesting part about Noah. So in 5, you're going to see all those genealogies just go down. And I told you all those different verses. And then they take you to Noah. But something very distinct happens in Noah's life. And it tells you exactly the year it happens. Look at I got it written right here. Verse 6 and then 11. So 6 says, and Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And it's not just vague saying he was 600 years old, give or take. Because then look at verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, it tells you exactly when he was 600 years old. So it gives you a very distinct point. And that's not just vague generalities of saying, oh, he was about this age. No, he was 600 years old, and it gives you exact month. I didn't go over this. I have just a few minutes, so I'm going to go over this for you. Methuselah. There's something really interesting about his name in general. If you look it up, like what does Methuselah mean, you're going to find like man dart or something. But there is a different argument for what his name might mean. Man dart comes from this idea of the shilach, the Hebrew word, as a noun points to like missile or projectile. But as a verb, it means to send, like to send something, to send a missile. And so you could say sends. So man dart is where they get it from the noun. But then the first part, they say if the root word is mat, M-A-T, in English, then it would mean man. But if it's M-O-T, which it could be, it would mean death. And so you would have the vowel afterwards. It would be like his death sins, is what it would mean, as a different way you could look at it. Why do I think that's cool? Do you know exactly what happened on the year he dies? Let's draw him out. The flood happens at 1656. So right here, oh wait, that is his timeline. So he dies right here. This is when the flood happens, the year he dies. Now, if I made the movie Noah, and if I wanted to do it right, I would have Methuselah, you go to Noah in the ark, he gets in the ark, and then you have Methuselah, and then the rain starts falling, and the earth starts shaking. That's how I would make it, right? Because that would line up like his death sins. That's pretty cool. It could mean man dart. I don't know. But I did like the idea of his death sins as another way of looking at it, because it's like the Lord knew what he was doing when he was telling people to name their children. Oftentimes we see that. So this is where you get the flood, that major event. So we know that Noah out here is 600 years old when that happens. And so to get Shem's age is a little bit difficult. This is where you have to start doing a little bit of study, a little bit of math. If you don't think math is going to help you, math will help you learn the Bible. And so if you look back at chapter 5, it's going to end with Noah. And it's going to say, I think, 532. And Noah was 500 years old. And Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Do you know Noah was not 500 years old when he begot Shem? So in order to find that, you look at how old Shem was whenever he begot Arphaxad, his son. And we get that in chapter 11. But what you're going to see is Arphaxad, and you can go ahead and just park on chapter 11. So if you want to go to chapter 11 to look along for yourself as you go through this, you're going to see that Arphaxad, let me get the verse for you, I think around verse 10. These are generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad. What does it say? 2 years after the flood. So if he was 100 years old and it was 2 years after the flood, we know that he was 98 you have to do some subtraction there, when the flood happened. Shem was 98 years old. 2 years later, he's 100, and he has Arphaxad. So if he's 98 here, well, if you backtrack, that's 502 is how old Noah would have been when he had Shem. So that's why, so it's there. The answer is there, but you have to do a little bit of math. You have to keep reading your whole Bible. Somebody could easily say, Noah was 500 years old and he had triplets. That's not what that means, right? It says he was 500 years old. And then it stops and says, and he begat these children. So it's just giving you a marker, I think, of maybe when the Lord talked to Noah, because it mentions that he's 500 years old, and then you have that interaction. So I think it's just a sort of an interaction between the Lord and Noah there, but it does give you that marker. Anyway, I'm going to zip through these last little bit of names, but I do want to show you Shem was, remember, born about 100 years before the flood, so we're going to put him right here, and I'm going to do his timeline. So Shem lives to be, I think, 777, and so he lives after the flood all the way to, we'll just draw it out right about there. So this is Shem. So he's before the flood, 100 years or 98 years. Then he has Arphaxad. I'm going to write these names down. We're going to get small, but I'm going to do it all the way down to another famous name. And when I do this, I'm just going to give you some facts about this famous name, and that's going to tie together that same kind of thought that you had up here, this idea of how they knew each other. So if I just start with Arphaxad, and we'll shorten it up, we have Arphaxad, Salah, Eber, and you probably can't read all these anyway, Peleg, Ru, I'm running out of room here, Sharug, Nahor, Terah. Anybody know who's next? Abram. Who said Abraham? Read your Bible. Abram. No, Abraham is next. You're right. Abraham's next. Now, I haven't drawn all the timelines in between here, right? But I can tell you, as if you map it down, this is all I did. I read through and I just mapped out as they go. It's not too difficult to do because I'll tell you in chapter 11, starting on verse 10, it's multiples of 2. 10, 12, 14, 16, it tells you who begot who at what age. So you really just go every 2 verses and you can figure it out really quick. And it goes all the way to Abraham. So the Genesis chapter 5 goes all the way to Noah and stops there. Genesis chapter 11 is where you pick back up with all of these dates again. And then you go all the way back down to Abraham and you stop there. So that's where Genesis 11 takes you to. Abraham, we all know he was about 100 years old, or he was 100 years old when he begot Isaac. But Abraham knew Noah. Abraham knew Noah for 58 years. That's about how long you would know your parents. So if you map it out and you see it, you can go online. There's a lot of these genealogy charts because, like I said, it's not a difficult thing to do. If you map it out, you'll see that Abraham knew Noah for 58 years. About what you would know your parents is what Abraham knew Noah. That's amazing to think about. Then you also have Shem, right, who was on the other side of the flood. And Shem lived an entire lifetime pre-flood. Not just like, oh yeah, he was born and he went right across on the boat. No, he was 98 years old when he was on the ark. Now he lived all the way to like 777. But just think about these people, it's hard to see the relationship that they had. They had an entire lifetime of relationship. The same lifetime that you would have with your parents is what Abraham had with Noah. That's pretty amazing to think about. So you wonder where his resolve comes when it comes to faith. He's probably talking to the generations before him. And then you have, I'm just going to write some of their ages. These 2 are the 2 last long ones, I think. So you have Salah that lived to be 433. You have Eber that lived to be 464. So these are long times that they were alive. And and Abraham knew these individuals. So you have Abraham, Isaac, and then you have Jacob, right? And you end Genesis with Joseph. You mentioned Joseph's children as well, but you sort of get all the way down to Joseph. But Jacob's the big one. What was Jacob surnamed or named? Israel. You have Israel. So if you were to map it all the way down, and you were to continue to go all the way down, a couple steps, Isaac, and then Jacob here. Jacob. This one's going to be hard. So just know that Jacob's down here. Abraham's here. Jacob knew Shem for 50 years. That's a lifetime. That's like knowing your parents. Jacob knew Shem for 50 years. He also knew Salah and Eber. 433, 464. Turn to Genesis 47 real quick. You have to remember that Jacob, Genesis 47, we're going to look at verse 9. Jacob had strong resolve about who the Lord was as well. And you can see that they had influence of people that, if you just backed it up real quick, Jacob knew Shem for 50 years. That's how long you know your parents. Shem knew Methuselah for 98 years. Methuselah knew Adam. That's 3 people. Shem, Methuselah to Adam. You go all the way back to creation because he knew him and he knew him. That's amazing to think about. That is not a big step. That's, what's 3 people? If you did dad, grandfather, my great-grandfather was Adam as far as who knows who, if you think about it like that. So if you've heard stories of your great-grandfather, let's say you don't know your great-grandfather, but you've heard your grandfather talk about him, that's what it would have been like for Jacob. But not just a few years that we get, 50 years, which is an entire lifetime. So it's as if your dad was talking about his grandfather. Think about it in terms of that. Imagine your dad was talking about, if your dad was Shem, because you know him for 50 years, and he was talking about his grandfather. That's the kind of relationship that Jacob had to Adam. And you get to see that when you go all the way down. It's pretty awesome to think about. Now, here's the thing. Jacob knew someone who was 433, 464, 777. Let's look at verse 9 of Genesis 47. And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. I don't remember this. I think he lives about 147. So this is at 130 that Jacob's saying this. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. Why do you think he said that? Because he knew a 700-year-old. He knew 2 400-year-olds. That's amazing. And he knew them personally, and he knew them for a long time. He didn't just know them. So if you back up 50 years in Jacob's life, what was he doing? You know, that's how long that he was alive. So he knew him all the way up to when he was 50 years old. So if you look at the Bible in terms of the relationships that you have, you can see the influences that people had just by their grandparents. So I think it's important, maybe if you want to take an application to this, to instill those relationships by talking about your parents or your grandparents, for good or worse, you know, and letting your children know about it. Because I believe that it influenced Abram to become Abraham, because his faith was great. But he had some pretty faithful people in his life, right? He had Noah to talk to and to learn from. He had Shem to talk to and to learn from. So be a faithful person. Hopefully, we're going to be done pretty early. I was trying to get right about 10:30, and that's what I got. So hopefully, this helps just bridge the gap for you when it comes to these chapters that are difficult to visualize. When you're reading through chapter 5, I once heard that somebody got saved off of chapter 5 because it says so-and-so and he died, so-and-so and he died, and he went through all of chapter 5 and just kept saying, all these people are dying. I'm going to die one day. And that's what led him to want to get saved. So even chapter 5 has the gospel in it, right? And so, but when you're reading it, it's easy to just go through and not realize the connections that are made. Who would have known that Abraham knew Noah? What was it, 56 years? I think I wrote down. 58 years. Who would have known that unless you map it out? But the Lord put it right there in front of you from the beginning. The Lord also put this in front of you from the beginning. Hopefully now you can remember it. If you haven't yet, a very easy way to remember creation, 1, 2, 3, then fill 1, 2, and 3 with 4, 5, and 6. And that's how he made the creation. That's all I have. So at this time you're dismissed. All right, y'all are dismissed.